I never imagined that a simple dress could turn my life upside down. Not in a million quiet nights spent locked in my room, fiddling with fabrics, imagining what it would feel like to be someone else. But that Thursday changed everything. And it all started with a sound, the soft, unmistakable click of my bedroom door unlocking. I froze mid-step, my fingers still clutching the satin hem of the dress I had dared to wear for the first time. The blush rising on my cheeks had nothing to do with the mirror reflection I was staring at. It had everything to do with the reality that someone had just crossed my private threshold. Jake. My roommate. My casual acquaintance, the guy who never really noticed me beyond shared chores and the occasional nod. He wasn't supposed to be home yet. And yet, there he was, silhouetted in the doorway, eyes wide, jaw tight, a combination of disbelief and shock plastered on his face. The air thickened. Every heartbeat sounded deafening, pounding in my ears like an alarm. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. The dress, soft and flowing, felt suddenly like a shroud, clinging, revealing, betraying me. I didn't know you were home, I finally managed, my voice trembling, thin as a thread. Jake blinked rapidly, processing. Wow, he said, and that single word held layers I couldn't untangle, amusement, confusion, maybe a touch of admiration? I wanted to disappear. I wanted to curl into a corner and hope the floor would open and swallow me whole. You're wearing my dress? He stammered, and the word "my" made my stomach twist. I hadn't stolen it, but suddenly it felt like some crime scene I was caught red-handed at. I swallowed hard, words failing me. Nodding seemed like the only option, but even that small gesture felt monumental. I wanted to explain, to justify, but the right words didn't exist. I just wanted to see, I whispered, trailing off, embarrassed beyond comprehension. Jake stepped further inside, cautiously, like approaching a wild animal he wasn't sure he could touch. I didn't expect this, he admitted, voice quieter now, laced with hesitation. I could feel the panic rising, creeping like a shadow over my senses. Why did I think this was safe? Why did I think I could do this alone, in secret? But as I looked in the mirror, I realized, this wasn't just about fear anymore. It was about identity, about desire, about a part of me that had been buried so deep I hadn't even dared to acknowledge it. I've always wondered, I confessed, the words tumbling out before I could stop them, what it would feel like, to wear something like this. To see myself, like this. Jake's brow furrowed. His initial shock was giving way to curiosity, maybe even fascination. He tilted his head, his gaze studying me, not judgmental, not mocking, just observing. And, he prompted softly. And I like it, I admitted, a whisper almost lost in the thick tension between us. The confession made my chest tighten. It was dangerous to speak aloud, dangerous to be seen. And yet, it felt exhilarating. The silence stretched. For what felt like hours, we just stood there. The air between us buzzed with unspoken questions, unsaid judgments, and the fragile thread of trust. Then, he finally exhaled. You look different. In a good way. I mean, his words trailed off, fumbling, yet there was a sincerity that made my pulse flutter unexpectedly. Thanks, I muttered, unsure whether it was relief or embarrassment that made my voice shake. Then the fear crept back in. What if this changed everything between us? What if this tiny, intimate moment became a spectacle? My mind raced. Do I run? Do I hide the dress? Or, do I show him everything? Jake, to his credit, seemed to sense my tension. Hey, he said carefully, I'm not judging. I just want to understand. His voice was steady, calm, and somehow that steadiness reached me, even as the room spun around me. I hesitated. Could I trust him? Could I risk showing this side of myself to someone else, even him? The thrill of exposure and the terror of being caught warred inside me, every nerve alive, every heartbeat magnified. Okay, I whispered finally. But you have to promise, don't freak out. He raised his hands in mock surrender, but his eyes were intense, curious. Scout's honor. For the next hour, the world contracted into my room. I demonstrated, explained, faltered, laughed nervously. He watched, sometimes leaning in, sometimes pulling back, his reactions a careful dance between fascination and caution. Every glance in the mirror, every shift in my stance, every slight adjustment of the dress became an intimate revelation of myself and of him as a witness. And as we talked, I felt something unexpected: empowerment. For the first time, my secret, the side of me I'd buried, didn't feel shameful. It felt alive. Dangerous, yes. Exhilarating, absolutely. But alive. Later, when he left, I collapsed onto my bed, the dress still clinging to my skin, a second skin that carried both vulnerability and strength. My reflection in the mirror seemed different somehow, sharper, aware. I touched my face, traced my jawline, felt the soft fabric against my body, and realized I had crossed a threshold. I had been caught. And in being caught, I had begun to truly see myself. That night, the thrill and terror merged into a single pulse that wouldn't stop. This is only the beginning, I thought. And in the quiet of my room, with the moonlight casting soft shadows across the floor, I knew something had changed forever. The next morning, the apartment felt smaller. Every sound, the creak of the floorboards, the distant hum of the fridge, even the scratching of Jake's pen in the other room, was amplified, like the universe itself was reminding me of what had happened. I couldn't move past it, couldn't act normal. Breakfast felt impossible. I stared at my cereal as if it were a puzzle I could never solve. Should I bring it up? Pretend nothing happened? I couldn't ignore the memory of Jake's wide-eyed look, the way he had leaned against the doorframe, the mixture of shock and curiosity and something else that had sent an involuntary shiver down my spine. When he finally emerged from his room, casual and oblivious, or pretending to be, my stomach twisted. "Morning," he said, eyes briefly flicking toward me before returning to his phone. I felt a pang of relief. Maybe we could pretend it hadn't happened. Maybe life could continue like nothing had changed. But deep down, I knew better. Throughout the day, every interaction with him became loaded. Even a casual brush past his shoulder in the hallway set my nerves on fire. I could feel the imagined weight of his gaze, wondering if he was judging, laughing, or analyzing me. I found myself avoiding mirrors, yet craving them at the same time. I wanted to see how I looked, how the dress had altered me, how I had changed. And when I did glance, my reflection startled me every time. There was a softness, a curve, a posture that wasn't entirely mine but suddenly felt like it could be. I touched my own cheeks, my hands trembling slightly. Who was this person staring back at me? The dress, of course, was still folded in my closet, a silent accusation and a temptation at once. I couldn't decide if I wanted to bury it or wear it again immediately, to feel that surge of hidden identity. Every nerve in my body screamed both yes and no at the same time. Jake, for his part, seemed changed too. He didn't bring it up directly, but his eyes lingered slightly longer than usual when I walked by. Sometimes, I caught him glancing at the closet where the dress lived, then quickly looking away. I felt exposed, but oddly, validated. I tried to go about my daily routine, classes, errands, even a small trip to the coffee shop, but everything felt magnified, distorted. Every whisper behind my back, every glance from strangers, became a projection of my fear. What if someone knew? What if I had changed too much? One afternoon, I found myself alone in the living room, my thoughts spiraling. I sat on the couch, legs crossed, staring at the sunlight dancing on the hardwood floor, and realized that the thrill of the dress, the thrill of being caught, hadn't left me. It had burrowed into my chest, a mix of fear and exhilaration. I touched my reflection in the darkened TV screen, tracing the contours of my face. My lips, my eyes, the softness of my hands, all seemed amplified. The memory of Jake's words, "It actually suits you," echoed in my mind. That simple sentence had the power to both comfort and terrify me. Comfort, because it was acceptance. Terrify, because it made the exposure real. That night, I stayed up far later than usual, thinking, replaying, imagining. What if I wore the dress again, but fully this time, outside the safety of my room? What if I experimented with makeup, or a wig, or a different posture? The possibilities were both intoxicating and terrifying. Days passed, and the tension between Jake and me became a silent, unspoken game. He would ask mundane questions: "Did you do the dishes?" Or "Want some coffee?" But there was always that flicker in his eyes, That small acknowledgement of what had happened, what he had seen. I felt both comforted and constantly on edge. Then came the first real test, laundry day. I needed to wash the dress, but the idea of carrying it to the washer felt like dragging my secret through the open. I clutched it to my chest, walking down the hallway with trembling fingers, and suddenly the world felt impossibly large. Every sound, the click of the elevator, the shuffle of feet, echoed like a drum of potential discovery. Jake appeared behind me in the laundry room, casual as ever. "Oh, you're doing laundry?" His tone was deceptively light, but I could feel the undercurrent. I nodded, trying to act normal, but the moment he glanced at the dress, my stomach dropped. "It's pretty," he said quietly, almost to himself. I wanted to disappear. My throat tightened. I whispered a thank you, avoiding eye contact, my fingers tightening around the fabric. That evening, I sat on my bed, folding clothes mechanically, but my mind wasn't on laundry. It was on possibilities, on identity, on the thrill of being caught, on the dangerous allure of someone else knowing my secret. I traced my fingers over the fabric of the dress and imagined stepping out into the world, not hidden, not afraid, fully myself. And then the thought hit me like a lightning bolt: maybe this isn't just a phase. Maybe this is me. The realization was terrifying. It meant acknowledging a side of myself I had suppressed, a side that had always existed in whispers and fantasies. And now, with Jake as an unwilling witness, it had been brought to life. Sleep didn't come easily that night. My mind replayed every moment, every glance, every word. I felt a strange combination of fear and liberation. I wasn't the same person who had nervously tried on a dress in my room. Something had shifted, something fundamental. By the next week, small habits began to change. I found myself lingering in front of mirrors, testing poses, imagining scenarios. I practiced walking differently, adjusting my posture, feeling out the subtle sway of hips, the tilt of shoulders. Every movement carried both a thrill and a fear, a dangerous balancing act between secrecy and expression. Jake never directly mentioned it again. But I knew. I could feel his awareness like a pulse in the apartment, a silent acknowledgement of the truth between us. And that knowledge, that delicate, unspoken bond, both scared me and emboldened me. I began experimenting in small ways. Matching socks that felt more feminine, brushing my hair differently, applying a bit of moisturizer and noticing the subtle changes it made to my skin. The thrill was addictive, yet each step forward carried a weight of potential exposure. Every encounter, every shared glance, every accidental brush of shoulders with Jake became an emotional test. My heart raced, my palms sweated, my mind alternated between fantasies and panic. Yet beneath it all was a growing certainty: I couldn't ignore this side of myself. Not anymore. One evening, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the dress folded neatly beside me, I realized that the world had irrevocably shifted. The line between private and public, fantasy and reality, secrecy and exposure, it was all blurred now. And deep inside, I knew that the journey had only just begun. The dress had done more than just cover my body, it had uncovered me. And whether I was ready or not, it was time to explore what that truly meant. After that first terrifying, exhilarating encounter with Jake, I couldn't stop thinking about the dress. Every waking moment, my mind replayed the way it felt against my skin, the way it made me see myself differently in the mirror. But now, the fear of being caught had transformed into something else: curiosity, almost obsession. I started small. First, it was just me, alone in my room, trying on clothes I'd never dared touch before. Fabrics that felt forbidden, textures that made my fingertips tingle. The dress, of course, was always at the center of this ritual. I held it up to my body, imagined myself walking through the world wearing it, and my pulse raced with anticipation. One evening, when the apartment was quiet and Jake was out, I decided to push further. I pulled out my mother's old makeup kit, long forgotten in the back of a drawer, and stared at the unfamiliar colors. Lipsticks, eyeliners, blushes. Each tube felt like a doorway into another identity. I hadn't planned to do anything, but my hands trembled as I picked up a soft pink lipstick. Sitting on the edge of my bed, I traced it along my lips. The sensation was strange, foreign, and intoxicating. The reflection in the mirror startled me. My features seemed sharper, softer, somehow more complete. I had seen this person before only in imagination. Now they were real. Next came the eyes. I practiced eyeliner, smudging and correcting endlessly, the liquid dark against my lashes making my gaze feel heavier, more expressive. I tried mascara, wincing as the brush tickled my eyelids. Every time I stepped back to look, I saw someone new, yet undeniably me. It wasn't just about appearance. It was posture, the way I moved, the tilt of my head, the sway of my shoulders. I walked around my room slowly, adjusting my stance, practicing the subtle cues I had observed in women around me. Each step felt like an exploration of my body in a way I had never considered before. I experimented with voice next. Alone in the room, I whispered, then spoke, softening my tone, elongating syllables, testing inflections. It was awkward at first, painfully so, but with each attempt, it began to feel natural, as if a dormant part of me was waking. Sometimes, I would stop and look at myself, breathless, heart pounding. The combination of dress, makeup, posture, and voice created someone who felt alive, real. And with each passing day, I craved more. I started recording my attempts on my phone, just to watch, to analyze, to understand. Listening to my own voice in that new register was shocking. Seeing myself through the camera lens made my pulse spike. There was embarrassment, yes, but also an undeniable thrill. Then came the fantasies. I imagined leaving the apartment dressed like this, walking down the street, feeling the brush of the fabric, the eyes of strangers. The thought made my stomach twist in a delicious combination of fear and longing. I knew it was risky, maybe insane, but I couldn't stop imagining it. The exploration extended to behavior. I practiced small gestures, ways of holding a cup, adjusting hair, crossing legs, the slight tilt of a smile. Every movement was a study, a rehearsal for a reality I wasn't yet ready to face but couldn't resist. Late at night, I would sometimes stand in front of the mirror for hours, applying layers of makeup, adjusting every detail, then removing it only to start over. I felt like a sculptor, crafting a version of myself that had always existed beneath the surface. Each session left me drained, exhilarated, trembling. I felt exposed, yet untouchable. The secret was mine alone, yet in some strange way, I felt connected to Jake's earlier gaze, his brief acknowledgement of me. That memory fueled me, giving courage to explore further, deeper. I began experimenting with hair. A wig, initially stiff and awkward, became a tool of transformation. Running my fingers through synthetic strands, adjusting styles, watching how shadows and light changed my face, it was mesmerizing. My reflection became a playground, each trial a revelation. Clothing beyond the dress also became part of the ritual. Blouses, skirts, scarves. I mixed and matched endlessly. Every outfit shifted my posture, my confidence, my sense of self. I practiced walking down imaginary streets, swaying naturally, feeling the fabric flow, imagining the reactions of people who would never know this hidden side of me. The more I explored, the more I realized how much I had been suppressing. There were moments of fear, yes, fear of being discovered, fear of being judged, fear of losing myself in this new persona. But intertwined with that fear was pure, unfiltered joy. I laughed at myself sometimes, whispered to the mirror, reveled in the discovery of my own body and expression. I also began to journal these experiences, capturing thoughts, feelings, and sensations in intimate detail. Writing became another layer of exploration, a way to process what I was experiencing. I described textures, movements, feelings, everything. The journal became a confidant, silent yet understanding, chronicling my transformation and internal journey. One night, after hours of experimentation, I finally allowed myself to sit quietly in the dress, fully adorned in makeup, wig perfectly adjusted. I looked at my reflection, truly looked, and for the first time I smiled. Not nervously, not uncertainly, but genuinely. I saw someone complex, beautiful, alive. Someone I could embrace fully, without shame. That moment was fleeting, fragile, but powerful. It cemented a truth I had only glimpsed before. This side of me wasn't a phase. It was part of who I was. The excitement, the fear, the thrill of discovery. It all pointed toward authenticity I had long denied. Yet the thrill of secrecy also carried a weight. Every sound from the apartment, every unexpected knock, made my heart leap. I had to be careful, meticulous, guarding this secret as I explored it. But even with the constant tension, I felt alive in a way I hadn't before. Over the following weeks, my sessions of exploration became more daring. I would try combinations of outfits, experiment with different makeup techniques, and even rehearse conversations in my softer, higher voice. Each experiment built confidence, each trial revealed nuances I hadn't noticed, each success added layers to my identity. I began imagining how I might reveal this side of myself, not to everyone, but perhaps to someone who could understand, accept, and maybe even support me. The memory of Jake's surprised yet non-judgmental reaction lingered. It became a touchstone, a reminder that the world didn't have to reject me entirely, that perhaps someone somewhere could see me for who I was and respond with curiosity rather than disdain. The private exploration wasn't just physical. It was emotional, psychological, deeply intimate. I discovered courage I didn't know I had, a sense of self that had been buried under layers of fear and social conditioning. And as the weeks passed, the thrill of secret discovery merged with a burgeoning sense of empowerment. By the end of this period, I had crafted a version of myself that felt alive, authentic, and terrifyingly real. Alone in my room, surrounded by the tools of my exploration, I realized something profound. I wasn't just playing dress-up. I was uncovering a part of my soul I had denied for too long, embracing complexity, beauty, and vulnerability all at once. The secret wasn't safe forever, I knew that. Eventually, someone might discover it. But for now, in the quiet hours, I had permission to be fully, unapologetically me. And that realization was intoxicating. The first time I left the apartment dressed fully, makeup perfected, wig in place, my pulse threatened to explode. The hallway outside my room suddenly felt impossibly long. Each step toward the front door carried the weight of exposure. What if someone saw me? What if someone laughed? What if Jake, or worse, someone else, judged me? I gripped my purse tightly, a lifeline in the storm of my nerves. The keys rattled in my hand like a drumbeat of tension. But beneath that fear, there was a thrill, sharp and addictive. I could feel the subtle sway of my hips, the tilt of my shoulders, the soft bounce of my steps. Each sensation screamed, "This is me. And I'm alive." The moment I stepped outside, the air hit my face differently. The sunlight seemed sharper, the street louder, every sound amplified. I caught my reflection in a car window and froze. The person staring back, confident, feminine, radiant, was both me and not me. I felt exposed and invincible at the same time. My first venture was simple, a nearby cafe. I walked slowly, deliberately, feeling the fabric of the dress move, adjusting posture with each step. My heart raced with a mixture of fear and excitement. Every passerby seemed to hold their breath in my imagination, judging me, noticing me. But then, as I entered the cafe, the tension shifted. The barista smiled at me. "Hi. What can I get you?" I almost stumbled over my words, my voice lighter, softer than usual. Just a cappuccino, please." The words sounded foreign, thrilling, like stepping into another life. She handed me the cup, chatting casually about the weather, her dog, some new local bakery. Every interaction felt monumental. I laughed softly, adjusted my hair, and realized that nothing catastrophic had happened. I wasn't exposed. I wasn't judged. I was simply existing. And it felt incredible. After that first successful outing, I began experimenting more. Short walks in the neighborhood, trips to the grocery store, even passing by friends who didn't know. Each time, my pulse raced, adrenaline mixing with excitement. I practiced subtle gestures, tilting my head while talking, brushing imaginary lint off my skirt, shifting weight from one foot to the other. Every small detail became part of the performance, and part of the reality. One weekend, I decided to push further. A small social gathering, a friend's casual get-together. My hands shook as I applied makeup, practiced voice inflections, and carefully adjusted the dress. For the first time, I imagined not just being seen by strangers, but interacting, laughing, connecting in this persona. When I arrived, the initial fear was overwhelming. Faces turned toward me as I entered. Whispers. Glances. My chest tightened, but I held my head high. Smiling, I moved through the room. The soft sway of the dress, the confidence in my posture, the subtle sparkle of makeup, it all felt like armor. People reacted differently than I expected. Some smiled warmly, complimenting my outfit or hairstyle. Others didn't notice anything unusual at all. And a few, well, they were curious but respectful. No one laughed. No one shamed me. Every interaction chipped away at the anxiety that had threatened to paralyze me for months. That night, I returned home exhilarated and exhausted. I had faced the outside world in a form that was true to me, and I had survived, thrived even. The thrill of being myself, publicly yet safely, was intoxicating. I began planning outings more deliberately. Coffee shops, bookstores, even a casual dinner at a small restaurant. Each experience built confidence, teaching me subtle lessons: how to carry myself, how to speak, how to smile without hesitation, how to respond to curious glances. One afternoon, walking through a crowded park, I noticed a group of teenagers staring. Panic surged, but I reminded myself to breathe, to remain steady. I smiled slightly, a gesture so natural it surprised me. One of them smiled back, and the tension dissolved instantly. I laughed softly, the sound light and free, and continued walking. That moment marked a turning point. I wasn't hiding anymore. I was navigating the world in this new persona, cautiously at first, then with increasing ease. Social experimentation also extended to friends and acquaintances. I started dropping subtle hints, small cues about my interests, my clothing, my style. Conversations shifted as I became more comfortable asserting myself. I experimented with voice, gestures, even laughter. Tiny tweaks that reinforced my identity and made interactions richer, more authentic. Jake, of course, remained a silent observer. Sometimes, I caught him looking from across the apartment, curiosity and amusement in his eyes. Our interactions subtly shifted, a mix of acknowledgement and unspoken understanding. He didn't intrude, but his presence added both tension and validation to my journey. One day, I decided to try something daring, a short trip to a nearby cafe in full dress, with makeup and wig. The streets felt alive, people moving in their routines, completely unaware of the experiment I was conducting. My heartbeat thundered in my chest, every step an act of courage. I held my head high, feeling the fabric of the dress flow, and caught glimpses of my reflection in store windows. Each one reinforced a growing truth: this persona, this expression, was not just a role. It was real. Over time, the thrill of these outings became addictive. I learned to read reactions, to adjust my movements, to project confidence even when my heart raced. Each successful venture increased my sense of empowerment, teaching me that the world was not as hostile as I had feared, and that my authenticity could coexist with society's expectations. There were moments of fear, of course. Accidental glances from someone I knew, whispered comments, or even my own internal doubts. But I learned to navigate them with grace. Each challenge became an opportunity to refine my identity, to strengthen my presence, to embrace my persona fully. Even simple tasks became exercises in exploration: ordering food, asking for directions, interacting with strangers. Each encounter reinforced a sense of agency I hadn't felt before. I was no longer just hiding behind a door or a dress. I was asserting myself, learning, growing, experimenting with the boundaries of identity and expression. The process wasn't linear. There were setbacks, moments of doubt, times when I questioned whether I was ready for public exposure. But each setback taught me resilience, patience, and the importance of self-acceptance. By the end of this phase, I had transformed not only my appearance but my internal sense of self. The blend of fear, exhilaration, and discovery had shaped me into someone more confident, more aware, and more daring. The private experimentation of Section 2 had evolved into public mastery, a dance between vulnerability and empowerment that defined my new reality. And yet, beneath the growing confidence, a subtle tension remained: the knowledge that one misstep, one accidental revelation, could expose everything. That tension, however, became part of the thrill, a driving force behind each step, each interaction, each experiment. I realized finally that I was not just performing a persona. I was living it. Each outing, each conversation, Each self-directed experiment brought me closer to authenticity. And with that authenticity came power. The power to be seen, to be heard, to navigate the world on my own terms. It started like any other evening. I had spent the day out, fully dressed, makeup perfect, wig styled flawlessly. Each movement, each glance, each interaction had been carefully practiced. Confidence was no longer fragile. It had roots, deep and tenacious, but beneath it lingered the tension of potential exposure. I knew that thrill would always accompany risk. When I returned to the apartment, I thought I was alone. Jake had mentioned he'd be out for the evening, which meant I had the freedom to relax, even remove some of the more elaborate layers of my persona. But as I stepped into the living room, I froze. There he was, standing in the middle of the room, his expression unreadable. His arms were crossed, eyes fixed on me with a mixture of curiosity, caution, and something deeper I couldn't immediately place. "You're back early," I managed, my voice wavering despite my confidence. He didn't respond immediately. Instead, he tilted his head, studying me the way one might study a painting, each brushstroke deliberate, each shadow meaningful. "We need to talk," he said finally, his tone calm but firm. My heart skipped. Talk? About what? Did someone else find out? Has my secret leaked? Panic surged, but I forced myself to breathe, to stand tall, to meet his gaze. "What about?" I asked cautiously, every nerve on edge. "This," he said, gesturing vaguely at me, fully dressed, fully made up, fully exposed in ways that transcended mere clothing. "All of this. I know what you've been exploring." Time seemed to freeze. My mind raced, spinning scenarios of rejection, ridicule, disaster. I opened my mouth to defend myself, to deny, to explain, but the words wouldn't come. Jake stepped closer, tone softer now. "I'm not angry. Not judging. I just want to understand. And I think you should too, understand yourself fully." Relief mingled with embarrassment, confusion, and an unexpected spark of excitement. His acknowledgement validated my hidden identity in a way no secret or solo experiment ever could. I didn't mean for anyone to know yet," I admitted, voice barely above a whisper. "It's private. My thing." "I know," he said gently. "But hiding it. It's clear you're not just playing dress-up. This is part of you. And you can't ignore that anymore." The room seemed to shrink, the air charged with tension, revelation, and possibility. I felt my chest tighten, not with fear this time, but with recognition. He understood, even if only partially, that this was deeper than clothing or makeup. This was identity. This was me. "I've been experimenting," I confessed, feeling the words burn yet liberate me. "Alone, at first. But now, I don't know where the line is between hiding and being me." Jake nodded slowly, eyes never leaving mine. "There is no line," he said. "Not really. You can be yourself. You can experiment, explore. And you can trust that I'll support you. But you also need to face the world, eventually. Be brave enough to show who you are outside these walls." I swallowed hard, emotions swirling. Fear, exhilaration, vulnerability, anticipation. For the first time, I felt the full weight of my journey, from private curiosity, through secret experimentation, into public confidence, and now, this pivotal moment of confrontation. And then it happened. The door clicked open. Another roommate, or worse, a neighbor, stepped in unexpectedly, eyes widening instantly at the sight before them. My chest seized. No. Not now. Not here. The moment stretched, each second a hammer blow of panic. But something inside me shifted. The rehearsed gestures, the posture practice, the countless hours of private reflection, they all converged. I straightened, met their eyes calmly, and spoke with a voice that was mine fully, unapologetically. "Yes," I said simply. "I am who I am. And this is me right now." Silence followed. Then, a slow, almost imperceptible nod. The tension melted, replaced with curiosity, tentative acceptance. The world hadn't ended. Judgment hadn't fallen. And I realized, this was empowerment. Jake's presence beside me reinforced that realization. We exchanged a small, knowing glance, a silent acknowledgement of shared understanding and support. My pulse slowed, my chest eased, and a strange, serene confidence settled in. Over the next hours, conversation unfolded, tentative questions, careful curiosity, gentle validation. I explained the journey, the experimentation, the private discoveries. I described the thrill, the fear, the exhilaration, the sense of self-realization. And as I spoke, I felt lighter, freer, more authentic than ever before. The climax wasn't loud or explosive, it was quiet, intimate, deeply emotional. It was the moment I allowed myself to be fully seen, fully known, without pretense, without shame. The confrontation had occurred, and I survived, not just survived but flourished. In the days that followed, life shifted subtly. I began to navigate the apartment, the neighborhood, the world at large with this newfound confidence. The dress, the makeup, the voice, the posture, they were no longer experiments but extensions of me. I ventured out more boldly, walked streets with my head held high, greeted friends without hesitation. Each interaction reinforced the lessons of self-acceptance, courage, and authenticity. The fear of discovery became a thrilling companion rather than a paralyzing force. Jake remained a steadfast, silent ally. Occasionally, we exchanged glances that acknowledged the shared secret, the journey, the transformation. There was no need for constant discussion. The understanding was implicit, unspoken, powerful. I began journaling reflections more deeply now, not just the process of experimentation, but the emotional growth, the resilience, the empowerment. Writing became a tool of consolidation, a way to process the profound changes within me. In the mirror, I no longer saw just a reflection. I saw identity, agency, courage. The dress that had once been a secret, a source of vulnerability and fear, had become a symbol of empowerment. Every strand of wig, every stroke of eyeliner, every practiced gesture contributed to a cohesive, authentic self. Looking back, I realized the journey wasn't about clothes, makeup, or public appearances. It was about claiming ownership of who I am, confronting fear, embracing vulnerability, and discovering strength in authenticity. The final lesson of this journey was clear. Empowerment isn't given, it's claimed. It's the courage to face exposure, the grace to navigate judgment, and the willingness to explore one's identity fully. And in that moment, standing in my apartment, fully dressed, fully realized, fully me, I understood that I had claimed it. The fear had not vanished entirely, but it had transformed. It was no longer a cage, it was a catalyst. Each heartbeat, each glance, each small victory was a testament to the journey I had undertaken, from secret curiosity to self-acceptance, from private exploration to confident expression. I had started with a dress, a mirror, and a single fearful experiment. I ended with a truth that no one could take away. I am me, unapologetically, authentically, courageously. And that truth, that empowerment, was mine forever.